The true nature of secular governments is best revealed in the institutions to which they give rise, and in the policies they foist upon existing institutions such as the National Health Service in Britain. The NHS was founded under a Labour Party government, a party which emerged out of a social reform movement led by Keir Hardie and other dedicated theists, who through religious conviction were determined to right the injustices of poverty. This old Labour monument to God-inspired philanthropy once courted the envy of the world for its ability to provide free and comprehensive health care to all British citizens, leading the way not only in medical treatment, but also in medical ethics. The same can no longer be said of its now squalid wards and practices, which have arisen under the secularist regime of New Labour. In 2006, news emerged that one of the country's leading hospitals throws the bodies of aborted babies into the same incinerator, used for rubbish, to save only £18.50 each time. The same hospital, Addenbrooke's, in Cambridge, England, adopts a different policy for unborn babies which are miscarried before 24 weeks. They are either cremated at a crematorium, buried at a cemetery, or passed to the parents, if they wish to make their own arrangements. The Daily Mail newspaper article in front of me as I type this script conveys the feelings I'm experiencing while reading its revelations. The article is titled, "Hospital Admits to Burning Aborted Babies in Waste Incinerator," and is written by James Slack, and I quote, "It is just so disgusting. What has happened to the dignity of the human being? It reflects increasingly certain people in society's attitudes to the unborn child, just flushing them away, or burning them like any other waste. How can we let this happen in a civilized society?" Viewer, it is horrific that over 185,400 abortions are carried out each year in the UK, that approximately 82% of abortions are funded by the NHS, that both statistics are rising, and that it is the British taxpayer being railroaded by the mechanisms of their secular state, New Labour's neo-Stalinist behemoth, which stalks and intimidates or consumes anything unfortunate enough to exist under the gaze and tyranny of its bureaucrats and CCTV cameras, into bankrolling its pogroms. The massacre of the innocents is even worse stateside. 4 in every 10 babies, that's 22% of all pregnancies, end with the murder of incipient human life. And while humanist human rights charities like Amnesty International obsess about forcing doctors to carry out abortions, and they fight tooth and nail to prevent convicted killers, rapists, and terrorists from being executed for their crimes, around 4,000 babies are put to death in America every single day for no reason other than them being unwanted. Given any other minority victim, the act of killing each year, what amounts to the population of a small country, would be labeled genocide. Americans have at least been legally protected from having their tax dollars misappropriated for the subsidizing of in utero infanticide. But this is set to end when the Obama administration overturns the Hyde Amendment, as Obama has personally stated his unyielding commitment to forcing American citizens to contribute to state-sponsored murder, regardless of the Hyde Amendment having been democratically endorsed in a 207-167 vote by U.S. House Representatives in 1976. The Hyde Amendment only applies to Medicaid, but even this minuscule fray in the reins of control cannot be stomached by the conspicuously secular Obama administration. If social conservatives are at all successful in mobilizing opposition to the policies of secular regimes, anything they achieve is simply steamrolled over, so the concept of freedom and equality in a godless democracy is revealed to be nothing more tangible than a platitude, and your apparent freedoms are just superficial gestures contrived to appease and prevent widespread social unrest. It is only those unwilling to unquestioningly abide by the dictates of godless states and their secular legal systems who truly face persecution and suffer an impeding of the freedom to express themselves, while patent as cheerleaders fit nice and snug as cogs within the confines of the machine, wagging their dogma of the oppressed freethinker, playing at shielding their rights from the attacks of imaginary hordes of theists with their bruised and battered bodies, holding a copy of the God Delusion in one hand and a gay pride flag in the other, embodying something between Woodstock Bravehearts and Popin' Jays. But I digress. In truth, the unquenchable bloodlust of the godless comes as less than a surprise. It should be expected, as the annals of the 20th century read like a litany of the orgiastic violence and disregard for human life exhibited by godless regimes. So theists have had more than a few indications of what awaits others deemed undesirables in a godless utopia. As the godless consolidate political power, theists can expect more days like those endured during the early 20th century, when among other outrages Joseph Stalin issued a decree in 1918 banning religious teaching in all schools, colleges, and universities. Stalin confiscated church buildings and monastic land was nationalized. Orthodox clergy were denied the right to vote, prevented from holding state offices, were denied food rations, and their children were barred from education. Priests were sent in their thousands to gulags for the crime of worshipping God, and most died of starvation, exhaustion, or both. It is estimated that 1,200 priests and 28 bishops had been killed by 1920. Many Methodists like to pretend that foisting a godless ideology on what was a predominantly religious Russian public was not really a motivation for the atrocities of Soviet-era communism. But what does the horse have to say about his cart? Our program necessarily includes the propaganda of atheism. Well, thanks for clearing that up, Mr. Lenin. And just to clear up any misunderstanding, in 1931 Stalin destroyed the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. Do not make the mistake of assuming our Methodist compatriots will behave any better now, as there is, after all, no concept of morality outside the expression of personal will, and might equals right in a dog-eat-dog society. Correct. Good is what the Methodist likes at any given moment, and evil is what he or she does not approve of in the next. If you get in the way of this expression of personal will, or if their loyalties shift at any instant, whether it be now, today or tomorrow, this year or the next, you'd better not get in the way, or you'll be so much collateral damage, as will any unwanted children. But what does the Bible have to say on the rights of a child in the womb? How does its teachings compare? Quoting Jim Rudd, director of Christian Street Preachers Alliance, we observe that Exodus, chapter 21, verses 22 to 23 sets forth a minimal case with larger implications for justice to be served by the civil authorities. 1. If men strive. The plural men is employed for the purpose of speaking indefinitely, because there might possibly be more than one person involved in causing injury. 2. So that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow. An example of a premature birth. Even if no injury results to either mother or child, the man who causes the premature birth is liable to be fined, and, in fact, must be fined. The Bible strongly protects the pregnant mother and her child, so that every pregnant mother has a strong hedge of legal protection around her. 3. And if mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, an example of accidental abortion. If the penalty for an accidental abortion is so severe, it's obvious that a deliberately induced abortion is strongly forbidden. It is not necessary to have a separate ban on any form of deliberate abortion, since the maximum penalty is served by this statute. If man through his own reckless actions unintentionally hurts a pregnant mother and causes her to abort a child, he must suffer the death penalty. How much more so for any person who intentionally induces an abortion? Viewer, our Rabbi, Yeshua, the historical Jesus, taught that to even corrupt a child is punishable by death, stating that, quote, "Whoso shall cause one of these little ones that believe on me to stumble, it is profitable for him that a great millstone should be hanged about his neck, and that he should be sunk in the depth of the sea. It is not the will of Elohim that one of these little ones may perish." God alone bestows life, and God alone has the right to take life, unless somebody has committed a capital offense included in the Torah. Show me an infant targeted for abortion who is guilty of murder, rape, adultery, or any other capital offense. Or give them their right to life. There can never be any justification for a new life being executed because of the reckless and selfish sexual practices of adults. Or don't the godless believe in personal responsibility? Apparently not. They want the freedom to commit whatsoever action they choose, but none of the inherent responsibility. This is consistent with the kind of consumerist and juvenile interpretations of freedom, free will, and freedom of expression in the minds of the godless. In the words of King David, "You formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it well." Life is a gift, and it's wonderful to live in this world, if only for the short days of our pilgrimage. Give children the same gift by rejecting Patina's death cult. Stay tuned for Part 4.